Welcome to another episode of Deep Dive Dialogues. I'm your host, Isabel, and today we have a very special conversation about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. You know how we keep hearing about AI coding agents taking over the world, but nobody actually shows us what happens when real developers use them in real life. Well, today we're going to change that.
Nice to be here, Isabel. And I have to say this paper really caught my attention because it's not another benchmark study in a controlled lab environment. This is actual messy human behavior in the wild.
Do it, let's get into it. Because honestly, I've been waiting for someone to do this kind of empirical work. We've had so many claims about coding agents, but almost no data on what actually happens when people use them day to day.
Channel everyone, so let's start with the basics. SWE-chat is a dataset of 6,000 sessions from real open-source developers, 63,000 user prompts, 355,000 agent tool calls. But what makes this really special is that it's a living dataset. It keeps growing automatically.
And the first thing that jumps out is this bimodal pattern they found. In 41% of sessions, the agent writes almost all the code. They call this vibe coding. But in 23% of sessions, the human writes everything themselves. So there's this really interesting split between complete trust and complete control.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Only 44% of agent-produced code actually survives into the final commit. That means more than half of what the agent generates gets thrown away or rewritten, and that's a huge efficiency problem.
Wait, so you're saying that even when people use these agents, they're still rejecting most of what they produce? That feels like a really important reality check.
Exactly, and it gets worse when you look at security. Agent-written code introduces more vulnerabilities than human-written code, which is concerning given how many people are now relying on these tools for production code.
But I think the most telling statistic is that users push back against agent outputs in 44% of all turns, through corrections, failure reports, interruptions. This is not a smooth collaborative process. It's a constant negotiation.
So what does this mean for the future of coding agents? Are we overhyping them?
Not necessarily, but we need to be honest about where they currently fail. The paper shows that agents are inefficient in natural settings. They work great in curated benchmarks, but real-world usage is messier. People have different coding styles, different project structures, different expectations.
And this is exactly why we need more datasets like SWE-chat. We need to move beyond benchmarks that test what agents can do in perfect conditions. We need to understand what they actually do when real developers with real deadlines and real codebases try to use them.
So the takeaway is that coding agents are useful, but not magical. They can help, but they also create new problems. And the best way to improve them is to study how people actually use them.
Precisely, and SWE-chat gives us that foundation. It's a living dataset that will keep growing and evolving as more people use these tools, which means we can track improvements and failures over time.
And that's what real science looks like, not just showing what works but also documenting what doesn't, so we can actually make progress.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, JJ and Xiang, for this fascinating conversation.
Thank you, Isabel. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and to everyone watching, keep asking the hard questions.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.